This is Zach with MyCodeTeacher.com, and this is going to be lesson number 8 of our Sound Mixer application. The last tutorial we figured out how to move our icons after having them placed in their slots, and so this tutorial we're going to focus on defining the area of the soundboard. And within the soundboard, right over here, if you drag the icon out of the soundboard, it's going to snap back into place to the original slot that it belonged in. And so if we also have time and the tutorial isn't extending too long today, then we'll also go ahead and work on defining the sound boundaries, but that's likely going to be tutorial 9 of 10. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started, and we'll see where we end up. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to our detail view controller, and we need to look at touches ended. And we defined a bunch of booleans here and set them to no so that we can help figure out which sounds are moving currently and which sounds are staying idle. And so the first thing that we need to do is if a touch ends, we need to figure out where to snap it back into place. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is if we go to our storyboard, drag this over here, we need to make an image view to set our boundaries of our sound mixer. And so if I go to View, Utilities, File Inspector, it's going to pop up with all my objects over here in the right side. And I'm going to go ahead and put in an image view. So I'll drag this in, close this out of the way here, and let's put it up here, and we'll make these boundaries relatively big. And so the reason I give a little bit of space in the edge is because if I take an icon, the center, we're going to do this based on the center of the icon. We want to make sure that it stays within the boundaries of this actual visible image in the back, not the image view that I just put over. But if I take the center of an icon, imagine taking this slot right here, and I drag it to the center. The center is going to be touching this line right here. The top of the box would actually be touching the top of this image right here, and so that's why we give it a little bit of room to make it look like the box is actually within the boundaries. And I'll try and demonstrate that a little bit later, but we've got an image view now, so let's go ahead and save, and let's go back to our detail view controller.h, and let's put this here in the code. Let's go ahead and we'll just give it a separate section here. IB outlet UI image view, and we'll call this audio box soundboard. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now let's go back to our storyboard here and connect it. So we need our file inspector back. So View, Utilities, File Inspector. We'll look at our outlets here, and we'll click on Detail View Controller. And here's our audio box soundboard. So we'll make sure we select that one right there, and it's now connected. Okay, so now let's go ahead and minimize our sound storyboard, and let's go to the detail view controller.m. And so now let's think about this for a second. When the touch ends, or when we're done moving an icon, or when we're done touching anything, it's going to call this touches ended function right here. And so this is how we know that that there's another icon in use, or there's a sound that's moving or not moving based on this method right here. So when a sound, or when we're done moving an icon, we want to be able to call this function so that we can determine if the icon is still in the audio box frame, and if it's not, we need to snap it back into one of its slots. So there's a couple of other things that go with this, and we're going to have to add this into a later tutorial, and that's going to be with the sound playing, because if the sound's playing and we move it out of the box, then we need to stop the sound. So at this point, we're not going to worry about the sound. We're just going to worry about if the audio box soundboard is intersecting one of our buttons. So we're going to go ahead and say if. Remember, we can use the CG intersects rect method to figure out if two objects are intersecting. So we're going to say audio box soundboard frame, and then my button 1 frame. And so now if these two are intersecting, then that means it's clearly touching at the time that the touch is ended. So at that point, we don't need to do anything right there. However, we will need to at a later point. So if they're touching, then we need to prepare to play the sound if it isn't already playing. And so we'll get to that point. We'll get to that point a little bit later. But otherwise, we need to stop our sound, and again, we'll worry about the sounds later. And then we have to animate. UI view, begin animations, nil, context null. UI view, set animation duration, 0.3. And then we need to move my button 1 dot center is equal to slot 1 dot center. UI view, commit animations. Let's see what the problem is here. This is supposed to be context, not content, and that's why there's that error. Okay, so basically what we're doing is if it's not touching the audio box, then we're going to animate it back to the slot. It's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and compile this and see how it runs here. If your toolbar isn't showing, you can just go to View Toolbar. It'll pop right up there. And so again, this should only work for the first button. Then we'll have to put them in for all the other buttons here. Okay, go ahead and rotate this, make it larger. Put this here. And there it goes. It animates right there. So I put it here, and it's just fine. Now if I take it off, it should snap back into place. Perfect. Just drag it over here. Beautiful. So if it doesn't land in the soundboard, it snaps back. And that's the effect that we wanted. So let's go ahead and get that code in there for all sounds. Okay, changes to button 2, and my button 1 dot center to slot 2 dot center. My button 3 frame, my button 3, my button 3. Save it. Now we need 4, 5, 6. Let's go ahead and change that here. 4, 5, 6, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, and let's do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we'll come back up here to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12, 12, 11, 11, 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6. Okay, so we should be good. So let's go ahead and compile now. Recompile, as I should say. I'm gonna make this larger, rotate it. We'll start adding all these icons here. Okay, perfect. So now let's go ahead and start adding a whole bunch of different icons in the center, just randomly here. Okay. And now let's drag an icon. Well, let's add a lot of them here. So now we would theoretically know where they go because there's titles for each slot, but because it's programmed in our code now, if we take something off here, it's going to snap right back to its appropriate place, which is a great feature because everything stays nice and neat. Come back here, come back here, here, and here. So as you can see, it all works nice and neat. So in the next tutorial, this was a short one. In the next tutorial, let's go ahead and take our code that we've put for the touches ended and play or stop sounds depending on if it's already playing or if it's in the audio box or not. And so we'll go ahead and work on that in the next tutorial. And then in tutorial 10, we'll work on getting all of the graphics to line up when we rotate the application. And so as you can see, you know, it gets a little messed up here. So we need to fix that. But that's again in tutorial 10. So we're getting very close to finishing. We just need to again fix all the graphics, get the sound to play and stop, and then make an info button. So we're coming right along and we're doing great. And we'll see you in the next tutorial.